There's the 3 tier lists that will be coming out in the next couple of days, and we're kicking it off with the Backmen. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel today. My name is the Crimson Wolf, and welcome back to Let's Talk Chelsea. The second installment in as many days. Obviously, the last one I covered where in our first team I believe there were necessary improvements, and to follow up on that, I will be making subsequent 3 tier list videos based on said positions, those obviously being goalkeeper, centre-back and striker, based on possible options that we could look at and whether I believe they will be good candidates for the kind of position we are looking for. Now, just to get this out of the way, I know I'm filming this pretty much the same day as the Morecambe game, and yes, we won 5-0. I did not do a blue review because, frankly, it didn't feel worth it. It was kind of more of a, yes, that was kind of expected more than anything. I know the first half wasn't great, but we made it up in the second half a little bit. So, I will do a quick summary, which is going to be summarised in 3 points. Tosin scored some bangers, Felix scored a worldie, and Kunku missed a penalty. Moving on. Basically, I'm going to go through 18 possible players that we could look to target either now or in the summer, most likely in the summer, to fill the void of Wesley Fofana, basically because he cannot stay fit. On screen is the tier list, and you will not be surprised that it is basically the same out as the Chelsea players tier list I did, but obviously now the categories are slightly different. Obviously, the very top category is the ideal category. This obviously goes for those kind of players where I believe they would be the perfect choice to bring in at Chelsea. We obviously below that have the solid category, which is players that I believe would be good, not necessarily would be absolutely perfect, but I can understand and see their qualities and would take them at Chelsea given the opportunity. I have the risky category, which is players that I do believe have quality, but I believe also have a couple problems with them, so may not be the best opportunity to look for. The unavailable category, which is probably going to be reserved for players that would be really good, but are going to be very, very hard to get hold of. And then the stay away category, which is just players that we should not be going anywhere near. With that being said, we are going to kick it off, and the immediate question I want to ask is, do we have the answer to our centre-back solutions in-house currently? And we're going to start that off by talking about Aaron Anselmino. Now, we have just recalled this guy back from Boca Juniors in Argentina. He's been on loan there for about 6 months. We have just brought him back on loan due to the extensive amount of injuries we've had in our centre-backs. I really like Aaron Anselmino. I do really like what he kind of brings to the table. From what I've seen of the guy, albeit it's not much, what I've seen is basically a very aggressive kind of centre-back, someone who isn't afraid to run into tackles. He is very capable on the ball. Two-footed as well. He's very capable of playing both sides of the defence, and I think that is something that we really could do with. He's only about 6'2", and he isn't, from what I've seen, the most aerially proficient. He is going in the risky category. He has 2 big flaws to his game. One, he is only young, which is the fact he's about 19 years old, and he's come over from Argentina. And you never really know how players that young moving to a foreign country will really adapt that well, especially when that foreign country is England. That is obviously something that is important. And obviously, we have heard from Maresca that he is trying to get settled in as quickly as possible in England. The other problem is, he does have a bit of an injury history, and that is a big concern. We are already having to deal with one of our starting centre-backs being injured all the time in Wesley Fofana. We don't need that again. With someone so young who could have an injury problem, really hang all of our hopes on Aaron Anselmino, I think that would probably just be a bit too unfair to him. So for me, I think it would be a big risk to hang our entire starting defence on him. Someone who Maresca seems to have designated as the stand-in for Wesley Fofana when he is not available is young academy player Josh Achampong. Now, Josh Achampong obviously did start the last match against Crystal Palace, and on the back of not featuring versus Morecambe, I do have reason to believe he is going to start the next one versus Bournemouth. Now, we have heard from Maresca for the last about 4 or 5 months that he really does like Josh. He has been an important figure in getting him to sign a contract extension to keep him at the club, And now we are starting to see the reasons why, because obviously, as I said, Josh started the last game versus Palace. I'm putting Josh Acheampong in the solid category because I believe he just has a lot of the traits necessary to be that starting centre-back. He is absolutely massive at 6'5". He appears to be quite quick. I've not really seen him at full sprint, so I can't judge that too heavily, but he appears to be quite quick. He seems very comfortable on the ball. He is very good in the tackle. He's very good as a challenge, and I think it should go without saying that he's obviously pretty good in the air, being about 6'5". Now, similar to what I said about Anselmino, it would be quite unfair to hang all of our defensive acumen on Josh Acheampong, only being about 18 years old. But the fact that he has had time to acclimatise to England, obviously being English, being raised here, being a Chelsea Academy product, and he understands the club inside and out. He's had a couple games this season. He looks to be getting a few more. I believe I would have more faith in him than I would have in someone like Aaron Anselmino, because we've already seen that Josh is capable, and clearly Maresca likes him. So for me, I wouldn't be adverse to giving Josh a shot. He's already been given the chances, and if he continues to perform to a decent level, I wouldn't be adverse to him becoming a permanent first-team member alongside Levi Colwill. Now, something that has come to light in recent weeks is the ability that we have to recall Trevoh Chalobah from loan on Crystal Palace. This, honestly, would be a smart decision if we do need centre-back cover. Obviously, it goes without saying, it won't cost us that much. There is a recall clause, so it won't be that too much. We do already own him. He clearly loves being at Chelsea. Obviously, one of the first things that came out when it was revealed that we could recall him was that it is his dream to make it at Chelsea. And I think Trev does have some of the qualities that we need in this team. He is very quick. He is obviously 6'4", so he is quite big. And he understands Chelsea. He has Premier League experience. And I think those qualities are very important. And I do think that bringing Trev back would be a good idea. The likeliness of that is going down by the day, and I did originally actually have him in unlikely, and the only reason I actually even bumped him up to solid is because this rumour came out. Do I believe it's going to happen? I think we would need to lose another significant defender, so Tosin, Disasi to injury, for that to happen. Obviously, Wesley Fofana is out for an unknown amount of time. It seems conflicting on how long he is actually going to be out. Badiashile is back sometime around February. And then obviously we have Tosin, Disasi, and Josh around that for now. So we'll have to wait and see with Trev, but I wouldn't be against him coming back. Now, of course, we have been linked with another Palace defender, this being another ex-Chelsea player in Marc Guéhi. And for me, Marc Guéhi, I think, is a bit of a risky transfer. Now, obviously, Newcastle tried to sign him in the summer. Palace wanted 75 million at the time. Now, that since has gone down to around about 50 million, which would be slightly less for us because of our sell-on clause, which would only put us down to about, I'd say, 40 million. Now, that is not a bad deal, to be fair. 40 million for a Premier League experienced defender like Marc Guéhi, an England international, is a good deal. And I do not deny he is a brilliant player. He has been one of the best centre-backs outside of the Big Six for quite a few seasons in the Premier League now. I don't deny he has quality, and obviously he is Palace captain. From what I've heard, he was Chelsea captain in quite a lot of the youth stages of the academy, so he clearly is a leader. I have two problems. One, while he is right-footed and can play on both sides, he made his name playing on the left, and we do not need a left-sided defender right now. Levi Colwill has been our best centre-back this season, so I don't think that's really what we need. The other problem is I don't think he's the right profile of player. And I say that I don't think he's the pacey, athletic, aggressive kind of centre-back that we need. And in my opinion, his biggest flaw is the fact that he is only about 6 foot tall. We need somebody who is good in the air. Levi is only as good as in the air as far as you can throw him, really. And putting another centre-back who isn't particularly aerial efficient in there is not going to help things. So for me, while yes, he's a good player, I wouldn't be looking at him. Now, there is one more Palace centre-back on this list, and it is French centre-back Maxence Lacroix, who obviously Palace recently signed from Wolfsburg in the summer. And I am a big fan of Maxence Lacroix. I was massively campaigning for him to be someone that we signed in the summer, because I think his profile is really, really good. He is very tall, around about 6'3". He is unbelievably quick. one of the quickest players in the Bundesliga. I think about a top speed of about 35 kilometers an hour. That is absolutely unbelievable. And for me, he would be an absolutely solid signing. He has been really, really good for Palace since he's come in. And with that Premier League experience, I think he would be able to grow into a better centre-back and become someone who would be really, really good for us. Now, his biggest asset is obviously the fact that he is massively quick, and I think that is something that we do need. Obviously, being quite good in the air does help him, and I do really like what we've seen from him this season. He's not an ideal category because he has got a history of being a bit ill-disciplined. He has been sent off a couple times in his career, so that is not something I particularly enjoy. I think what we've seen of him so far, he hasn't managed to get himself sent off so far. If we did go for Lacroix, I wouldn't be against it. Now, we covered Marc Guéhi, who is one of our ex-Chelsea centre-backs. We're going to look at another ex-Chelsea centre-back in Fikayo Tomori. Fikayo Tomori, for me, is in the stay-away category, because he has had so many injuries since being at AC Milan, and that is not something that we need. Now, Tomori, I think, is a very good player. I think he has done exceptionally well since going to AC Milan, and I think what he has brought to that team has been really, really good. He's about 26 years old now. He is very quick. He's 6'2", so his profile's kind of good, but that injury record is not needed. There were obviously reports coming out that Tomori could be looking for a return to the Premier League. By the sounds of it, they'll seem to have died away, obviously with the sacking of Paulo Fonseca in return for Sergio Conceição, and Tomori seems to be back in favour again. This seems unlikely regardless, but with that massive injury history that he's had quite recently, I wouldn't be looking at Tomori. Now, someone I've seen Chelsea linked with over the past 6 months quite heavily is Bournemouth centre-back Ilya Zabani. Ilya Zabani, I think, is a good centre-back. My problem with him is he is not the kind of centre-back we need. So I'm putting him in the risky category. He's more of a ball-playing centre-back than he is an athletic, aggressive kind of centre-back. And I don't particularly believe that's something we need. He's about 6'2", not the quickest from what I've seen. I could be wrong about that, but from what I've seen, he's not the paciest. This season has just been outshined by a lot of other centre-backs, not only in the Premier League, but in his own team, which leads me on to my next centre-back, Dean Huijsen. And Dean Huijsen, I think, would actually be a solid signing. Now, if you're unaware of who Dean Huijsen is, he is a 19-year-old centre-back playing for Bournemouth currently. He's about 6'5". He is two-footed, he plays on both sides, and he has scored a couple of goals this season against Man United and Tottenham. So, I really like what we've seen out of Dean Huijsen. He does look like a really, really good player, and he has had no shortage of suitors this season, with the likes of Real Madrid, Liverpool, teams like this being linked with the guy. So, I do think it would be a good opportunity, and obviously his biggest asset is the fact that he is so tall. He is 6'5", so I think that could be something that would massively benefit us, because the one thing our team does not have is height. Like, we do not have that in abundance, so I think Huijsen would be an alright signing. Moving into someone we've heard is quite popular among the Chelsea backroom staff, and that is Thomas Araujo at Benfica. And Thomas Araujo was apparently someone on the radar of not only us, but also Crystal Palace and PSG in the summer. However, since then, he has obviously signed a new contract at Benfica, keeping him at the club until a minimum of 2029. And for me, that does put him in the unrealistic category, because Benfica are painful with their release clauses. Like, we know firsthand from Enzo Fernandez's release clause. Obviously, with them, it was release clause or bust, paying about 106 million, something like that, for Enzo Fernandez, obviously 6 months after joining them and winning the World Cup. And obviously they've been painful with it in the past, obviously with players like João Neves, who obviously they enforced for quite a while before accepting 80 million from PSG. With an 80 million release clause slapped on Thomas Araujo, I'd be very surprised if we did go for him more than anything, because we do seem to be stepping away from paying his big fees as much at the minute. Maybe it's possible, and maybe we could go and do it. We do have a history of dealing with Benfica, although I'm sure Rui Costa is absolutely sick of seeing our owners and SDs right now, so he won't be too happy about that. But for me, it is unrealistic. However, Benfica do also have another centre-back that I am a massive fan of, and that is Antonio Silva. And Antonio Silva is the first player in the ideal category of this list. I am a massive, massive fan of Antonio Silva. From what I have seen of him, he is a fantastic centre-back. He's quick, he's strong, he's powerful, he's good with his head. He was a Portuguese international, played at the World Cup. His big problem at the minute is he isn't getting game time for Benfica. However, by the sound of it, from what I've seen from Benfica fans online, they passionately disagree with this, because the centre-back duo apparently has been Thomas Araujo and Captain Nicolas Otamendi. However, a lot of people do believe that Antonio Silva should be getting played over Otamendi. That is a bit of a work against it. However, that does present him with the prime opportunity to leave Benfica if he is out of favour. He has been linked to Juventus quite recently, and there have been rumours of him being able to leave for about 40 million. Benfica are reluctant to let him go in January and will likely be more happy to let him go in the summer. So, for me, I think this could be a perfect opportunity. We were linked with Antonio Silva about a year ago, who had, I think, about 100 million release clause. Apparently tried to put him an offer for him, which I think included some kind of swap deal for Armando Broja. I think we genuinely should look at rekindling that interest. He is, in my opinion, one of the best young centre-backs in the world. So, 100%, I think this would be a good signing for us. Now, there is another young centre-back in the Portuguese league, not at Benfica this time, at Sporting, Ousmane Diomande. And Ousmane Diomande, for me, is another ideal signing. He was obviously part of the title-winning side under Ruben Amorim at Sporting. He was also a part of the Ivory Coast team that lifted AFCON trophy. He didn't play that much, or granted, but he was there. Ousmane Diomande, for me, is a very, very good centre-back. He stands at about 6'3". He can play all across the backline in any three positions, in a back three or a back four. And I think has been one of the best young centre-backs in the world for the past 2 years, give or take. He has, I think, about a £60 million release clause, something around that. He is very, very quick, 6'3", as I mentioned. And for me, would be a very, very good signing. I do have a couple caveats with him. One is obviously the fact that being an Ivory Coast international, we are likely to lose him for a month every 2 years when he does go to AFCON. So being a starting centre-back, that can be a little bit problematic, but I think we could sign better squad depth to be able to accommodate for that, so that might not be as big of a problem if we plan correctly for it. The other problem is, I don't know if his profile is necessarily the most perfect. He is more of a ball-playing centre-back similar to Levi Colwill than he is an aggressive centre-back. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. It might just be a little bit of a tweaking of the system, might allow us to be able to accommodate both of them a little bit better. And maybe with time, he could accommodate more into that aggressive kind of centre-back role. And with his pace, I think that might be able to be utilised quite a bit. So that is a slight concern, but it shouldn't be enough for us to dissuade from going for one of the best young centre-backs in the world. Now, from one of the best young centre-backs in the world to one of the best experienced centre-back in the world, we're talking about Bayer Leverkusen's Jonathan Tah. And Jonathan Tah has been one of the few names on the lips of every Chelsea fan. He is obviously out of contract with Bayer Leverkusen in the summer and has said that he will not be signing a new contract. He is expected to leave. I think it could be a prime opportunity for Chelsea to snap him up. However, Jonathan Tah is going in the unrealistic category because while yes, he is on a free, it would not be impossible for us to get him. It might as well be because he has two clubs that are hot on his heels for signing him up. Those obviously being Bayern Munich and Barcelona. Now, Barcelona are at the minute the favourites by the sound of it. They are obviously in massive financial trouble right now. So if that continues, that will become impossible. Being on a free and with Barcelona's ability to kind of sell players for decent prices, they shouldn't struggle with that for too long, in theory. However, even if he doesn't end up at Barcelona, I have zero doubts in my mind that Bayern Munich will sign him. He's one of the best centre-backs in the German league. He is a German international. He obviously played, I think, every game at the Euros. So it would absolutely not surprise me that if he didn't end up at Barcelona, for him to end up at Bayern Munich. I do think there is a real possibility he does end up at Barcelona, but that would require the sale of players. So, with that in mind, what about Ronald Araujo? Rumours in the recent weeks have come out that Juventus are trying to sign Ronald Araujo from Barcelona, obviously with Barcelona's financial troubles as of recent, with the inability to register players. They are in desperate need of money, and one of their assets that could raise them quite a bit of money is Ronald Araujo. Ronald Araujo has been one of the best centre-backs in the world for the past couple of years. 26 years old, a 6'4" Uruguayan centre-back who is Barcelona's vice-captain as well, it's worth mentioning. So, someone who I would imagine they won't be too fond of getting rid of, but might have to if they want to make way for players like Dani Olmo, if they actually want to bring them in. And if they are looking to sign Jonathan Tah on a free, it would make sense. So, with that in mind, Ronald Araujo is in the ideal category. Now, if you look at Chelsea fans on Twitter, they have a massive string of contingencies for centre-back. They need to be experienced, they need to be the right profile, they need to be, I don't know, over the age of 25 for crying out loud. And for me, when they list off all these categories, the the name that always pops into my head is Ronald Araujo. And I do genuinely believe he would be a perfect signing for us. Now, his obviously biggest flaw is the fact that he does have an injury record. We really do not need another centre-back, as good as they are, having a massive injury record. We're dealing with that right now. We can't deal with it again. It is not impossible for players to get over said injury record, and it's not impossible for them to adapt to the Premier League in doing so. Noni Madueke is the example I always use for this instant, because when he was at PSV Eindhoven, man basically had glass ankles. He couldn't go a game without getting injured. Since he's come to the Premier League, he's had no long-term injuries, albeit he's not really played enough to have any long-term injuries, but he's played more than enough and he's barely gotten injured, if not at all. It's more than possible that Araujo could come in and be injury-free and be a world-class centre-back for us. So for me, he would 110% be a top priority. But what if Barcelona don't want to get rid of him? What if they want to sell somebody else? So what about Jules Koundé? Now, immediately this just goes into stay away. On principle alone, this is in stay away. Now, if you've been living under a rock for the past, I don't know, 3 years, we tried to sign Jules Koundé in the summer of 2022 when the new owners first came in. And he basically told us to sod off and he went and joined Barcelona. On principle, that's enough for me to say no. We already had the chance to sign him and he told us no. What would be the point? He already chose Barcelona over us once. On principle, I wouldn't do it. To be honest as well, I don't think he's the profile of centre-back we're looking for. He has also, for the most part at Barcelona, played as a right-back. And yes, he is a centre-back, right-back kind of hybrid profile. And with the kind of system we play, that would be really, really good. But I also just don't think he's the kind of profile that we're looking for. He's only about 5'11", which is not tall enough to be a central defender, in my opinion. Look at Lisandro Martinez. But on principle alone, I wouldn't sign Jules Koundé. I also just don't think he's the kind of player that we need either. Now, I mentioned earlier that Chelsea fans have had quite a few contingencies for players that we are looking to sign. Obviously being experience, being world-class centre-backs, having leadership qualities, this, that and the other. Well, if you're looking within the Premier League for that kind of profile, you'll find very few better than Ruben Dias at Man City. And obviously we have been linked with Ruben Dias over the past couple of months, saying that he potentially wants to leave Man City, and we have been one of the clubs that would be looking to sign him. While I think Ruben Dias would be a fantastic signing, obviously being one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League, 28 years old, a league winner, multiple league winner, in fact, a Champions League winner, and would be a sensational signing for us, I do believe it's unrealistic. Pep is obviously going through a massive, massive rebuild at City right now, and while he has just brought in a new centre-back from Lens, Abdikir Kanusov, or however you pronounce his name, I'm not entirely too sure, as well as trying to sign 18-year-old Brazilian centre-back Vitor Rios, Pep is going to try his hardest to keep hold of as many of his quality players as he can. With the absolute season from hell they have had so far, he will not be willing to let go of anybody if he can avoid it. He has, admittedly, in the past been willing to let go of players if they do not want to stay. So if Ruben Dias doesn't want to stay, maybe Pep will let him go. With the situation he is in right now, I'd be very surprised if Pep is willing to let anybody go. I'd honestly be quite surprised if Ruben Dias does truly want to go, because we know what Man City are like. They are just trophy-winning machines. So I'd be surprised. He is also probably a future Man City captain, Ruben Dias. I think it'd be a good signing if we did try and sign him, but I think it is very unlikely. Switching over to Italy right now, we'll talk about Inter Milan centre-back Jan Bisek. And straight up, again, I think this is unrealistic. He has just signed a contract extension at Inter Milan. And while, again, I think he would be a very, very good signing, he obviously does not understand how to play in a back three, which at the minute is our main demand. He obviously plays on the right of a back three for Inter Milan. He is a very, very good centre-back. He has been really good. I obviously saw him in person on one of our pre-season games before the season started when we played Inter at Stamford Bridge. He was very good in that game. I think he could be a good signing for us. I just do believe it's unrealistic. I would imagine Inter will probably charge quite a bit for him, and I'd be surprised if he honestly wanted to leave Inter at this point. So, again, I think it's unrealistic. So, moving back over to the Premier League, we're going to look at one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League this season, Nikola Milenkovic at Nottingham Forest. And he has been really, really good for them since he's come in. He obviously signed him in the summer from Fiorentina, and he has been really good with him ever since, alongside his Brazilian counterpart, Murillo. I think it'd be a solid signing. Milenkovic is a big dude. If you've ever seen him, he is absolutely massive. About 6'5", an absolute mountain of a bloke. And he's obviously scored a couple of goals this season, which makes sense. At someone that size, you kind of expect him to be good with his head. He very clearly is. I've not particularly seen what his speed capacity is like, so I can't really judge on that. He is an absolute physical monster. You can just see it by even looking at him and tell how good he is. He has been one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League this season. Obviously, Forest are in third currently, and a big part of that has been their defensive unit. Now, while Murillo was the man with all the fame coming into the season in that Forest backline, it's been Milenkovic who's actually been the standout this season, bringing him to Chelsea to kind of shore up that defence. He is about 28 years old, so he is a bit more experienced than a lot of other centre-backs. Maybe it'd be a good idea. Maybe it'd be something that we could look at. Now, the final name on this list is a bit of a rogue shout, and that is from a team you might not expect to have any players feature on this list, and it is Southampton defender Taylor Harwood-Bellis. Now, don't just immediately shoot this idea down. Hear me out. Southampton have been absolutely woeful this season. They have been absolutely terrible defensively. Yes, that is a fact. However, in my opinion, other than arguably Tyler Dibbling, Taylor Harwood-Bellis has been Southampton's best player this season. Like, he is way too good for Southampton. I don't know how he ended up there. Harwood-Bellis is obviously another product of the Man City Youth Academy, which means he is likely to have been recognised by Joe Shields, who has obviously brought in quite a few ex-City players, obviously Cole Palmer, Romeo Lavia, Jadon Sancho, Tosin. Now, signing Taylor Harwood-Bellis could be up there with signing someone like Liam Delap. He is a full England international, obviously making his debut quite recently, and scoring in a game against Ireland, so that is obviously a big tick in his win column. He has obviously scored a couple goals this season for Southampton, obviously against Bournemouth most notably, and I think he has been their best player this season from what I've seen. Now, there is obviously the big concern, which is that does he possess the quality to make this step up from Southampton to a top 6 club, or top 4 club in this case. And while I don't think it's necessarily the same case, we have seen it done before, obviously in our own case with Romeo Lavia. There are two big aspects, in my opinion, that go in Harwood-Bellis' favour. One is the style of play that Southampton have been implementing, specifically under Russell Martin. They've basically been trying to play like a top 6 team, but without the necessarily quality players to do so. That would basically mean that Harwood-Bellis does have experience playing the kind of system that we do, and it wouldn't take him that much time to adapt. He obviously already knows the Premier League as well. The other big factor, and this is, in my opinion, the biggest factor, is he has played with Levi Colwill, not at club level, but at international level. The two of them were the centre-back partnership for the Under-21 Euro triumph. Both of them played every minute of that tournament and conceded 0 goals. Every game they played, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was about, 7-8 games? A clean sheet in all of them. Something like that would be very, very beneficial for two players that already know each other, that have good experience with each other, successful experience with each other. Harwood-Bellis was obviously the Under-21 captain for that tournament. I think it could be something worth looking at, so I'm going to put him in the solid category. Do I think it's a perfect choice? No. And would there be quite a few players I would sign over him? Yes. It's not my least favourite option, and if we were going to look at it, I don't think it would be the worst idea. his prior experience playing alongside Levi, his Premier League experience, his experience playing a system like we play, I think could all combine to him being a very good signing. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. So yeah, I'll imagine you're probably quite sick of hearing my voice, so I will sign off here by saying my name is the Crimson Wolf. I am the reddest Chelsea fan on the internet, and you have all been amazing. Don't forget, as I said, to leave your thoughts on centre-back targets in the comments down below. Did I miss somebody that you think we should go for, or did I cover someone and you believe that we should go for them? Please do tell me. So I will see you all in the next video, which obviously will be covering one of the other positions, and I'll give you a quick spoiler. It's going to be the goalkeeper. See you in the next one. Good luck with it.